This is the Sports Psychology Hour with Dr. Andrew Jacobs.
I cannot express the gratitude what my son came and visited you.
Dr. Jacobs has been in practice for 40 years as a sports psychologist.
I have seen a change in youth sports in the last 10, 15 years. I've talked about it a lot on this show.
The Sports Psychology Hour. The best advice on the radio each and every week.
Failure and losing and screwing up is something that happens in life. It happens in sports. And I think we have to teach kids how to do that more effectively.
This is where sports talk gets real.
That word playing, it's gone from our society in a lot of ways with kids.
And now here's your host, Dr. Andrew Jacobs.
Good morning, everybody. I'm sports psychologist Dr. Andrew Jacobs.
I'm here every week as we talk about the mental side of sports and look forward to taking your calls, getting discussions with you today as we talk about sports psychology. You know, I'm here every week. I've been on the radio now 30 years in Kansas City. Our shows are podcasted around the world, actually, all over the place. They're rebroadcast in a number of cities throughout the country the following week. And we talk about mindsets, attitudes, focus. It is springtime. Thank goodness. The weather's warming up. We're getting outside. The vaccinations are working. People are starting to be positive again, smile again. There's hope again. And I know a lot of people are really happy about the fact that hopefully this virus is getting under control and things are getting better. We're not quite there yet, but we're on the road. It is baseball time. It's Final Four time. It's springtime. And if you are a basketball fan, you cannot have, unless you're a UCLA fan today, enjoyed the Gonzaga-UCLA basketball game last night, which went into overtime and almost went into double overtime and ended with Jalen Suggs of Gonzaga sinking a three-pointer almost from midcourt, calmly dribbling the ball up and knocking in a three to put Gonzaga in the final against Baylor, which was the prediction most people had, the top two teams. How did he do that? How did he concentrate and focus on that? We're going to have a guest throughout the show today. His name is John Yeager, and he's quite an interesting man. He is one of the top goaltenders in lacrosse in this country. He's in a whole bunch of Hall of Fames, high school, college, and professional halls of fame in New England, Massachusetts, as a lacrosse goalkeeper. He's named one of the top 20 New England lacrosse players of all time, and he's just written a book called The Coaching Zone, Next Level Leadership in Sports. He's going to be joining us our last three segments of the show today. Talk about leadership, talk about coaching, talk about what it takes to be successful. I'll be interested to talk with John about his views. You know, pressure, performance, anxiety, stress, confidence, all these words fit together. And obviously here in Kansas City, we've been very blessed to have had a football team the last three seasons that's been very, very good. 2 Super Bowl appearances, 1 AFC championship game loss, and then 2 wins and a Super Bowl win and a loss. But when you put it all together, tremendous leadership on that team by Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, Tyrann Mathieu, a bunch of players. And how do you develop that leadership? We're going to talk with him today about that. We're going to talk with John about that when he joins us on our second segment. But I think as we go down and look at the history in great sports performances, if you look at any athlete, male or female, professional, college, high school, whatever, there's a level of self-confidence that these people have. They don't stress under pressure. They thrive under it. They make the situation something for them that turns them on and turns them off. Now, I've been in practice for 40 years as a sports psychologist, one of the first trained sports psychologists in the country. Trained under Dr. Robert Nidefer at the California School of Professional Psychology, San Diego, graduated in 1981. And I learned a lot about mindsets from Dr. Nidefer, and I've translated that into my work throughout these years. I've had the privilege to work with all levels of sports. In the 1980s, I was the U.S. cycling team psychologist, went to 3 world championships, and was in the 84 Olympics where the team won 9 medals. I had the privilege to work with the Kansas City Royals a couple of times for a number of years. Was around great athletes like George Brett. Hall of Famer, one of the classiest guys I've ever met when it comes to an athlete. I've worked with college teams. I've worked with high school athletes and coaches. I've spoken. I've given speeches on these topics. And I think there's something that we can learn and develop as we grow about these qualities. And basically, essentially, what it comes down to is, I think you learn about not being afraid to fail. You learn about thriving under that situation. It turns you on rather than turns you off. Now, my producer, Blake Snyder's, he played sports for a long time as a football player. He's not playing anymore because he's out of college, thankfully for Blake.
They said I couldn't stay longer. I wanted to. But.
Well, you probably would have been there 7 or 8 years. But let me ask you this question, because I'm going to ask Dr. Yeager this when we get him on the show. Leadership, confidence, positivity. How do you get that, Blake? You played around a lot of football players over your years. What do you think it is that allows someone to have those qualities?
I think one of the biggest things that, are you talking about from a coach's perspective or just from a leadership, from a player's perspective? Just talking about it
in general.
Well, okay, then I'll take it two different ways. From a player's perspective, I think it comes from wanting to be the person who would love to lead by example. And that's not to say, hey, I'm going to go out and show off that I'm the best player. It's, I'm going to do everything right because I want to. Because I know it'll make me better, and I hold you to the same standard. Typically, those people I find to be, and believe it or not, I actually did fall into this category. I always wanted to just do everything right, because I know if everybody was out there doing everything right, we as a team would move forward.
Okay, but you didn't always do everything right.
No.
So here's my point. When you don't, how do you come back from that? Because I think that's what we learn and develop as we're younger.
Yeah.
And when we fail, because we all fail, believe me, I failed a lot. Ask my kids. My sons will tell you that. No, but seriously, I think when you fail, it's how you learn and grow and thrive from that.
Yeah, it's almost how you bounce back and how you portray your failure to your teammates. There's a couple different ways people fail. The way of leadership is, if I fail, acknowledge my failure, learn from my failure, and try to minimize the mistake that caused that failure in the first place. If you can exemplify those three things and show that noticeably, instead of getting mad, blaming it on somebody else, not taking ownership or responsibility for it, that's what a true leader is.
Well, I don't disagree with anything you said, but I think a lot of this comes down to, as a youngster, as an adolescent, and as a teenager, when you screw up in a sports activity, in school, in band, in choir, whatever, in a relationship, you'll take ownership of it. You look at what you did wrong, and you challenge yourself to grow from it. And I think that starts with the way we're raised and the values we're taught to not be scared to screw up. And I think that's why we see, if we listen to the Jalen Suggs story after the NCAAs are over, and we'll know, obviously our show is rebroadcast throughout the week. By the time the show's rebroadcast, we'll know who won, whether it was Baylor or Gonzaga. But we're going to hear, this is one of the greatest shots in NCAA history, in overtime to go to the final, the championship game, shooting a three, calmly dribbling the ball up the court and shooting it and drilling it, like it was no problem. Okay, so that calmness, that confidence, has to come from the way he was taught and raised and coached.
Well, and I think you said something that I think is, we hear a lot, but we don't actually know what's behind that. It's learning from your failures and learning how to grow from them. But it's almost funny, they say practice makes perfect. Well, the more that you fail and the more you learn from each failure, it's almost like you have to fail a certain amount of times for you to become comfortable with not worrying about failing, because you're going to grow from it. And it's not just once. Sometimes it's not twice. Sometimes, you listen to Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan didn't make 60 game-winning shots. He missed 1,000 game-winning shots.
Well, and that's the whole thing I always like to say. Kobe Bryant, God rest his soul, 2 years before he retired, set the record for most missed shots in NBA history. and that record will probably stand for a long time. He missed more shots than anybody in the game. Of course, there's always the quote, you never miss a shot you don't take. So he wasn't afraid to miss. And I think that's the whole key thing is you get to a point, and I know watching George Brett in 1990 win his third batting title, he hated making it out. I can tell you that right now. He didn't want to make it out, but he wasn't afraid to go after it. He wasn't afraid to screw up because that's part of what it's about. I'm sports psychologist Dr. Andrew Jacobs. This is the Sports Psychology Hour.
This is the Sports Psychology Hour.
I'm Dr. Andrew Jacobs. As a sports psychologist with 38 years of experience, I've worked with athletes, coaches, parents, and officials, assisting them at learning how to handle issues like sportsmanship, self-confidence, developing a positive, realistic attitude, and achieving maximum performance. I want more people to know about the importance of having fun, learning from failure, and that winning is about doing your best. That's why I created the Sportsmanship Foundation, a 501c3 educational organization dedicated to promoting and educating parents and athletes about the role of good sportsmanship in our development. Our priority is to help bring back the fun into youth sports.
If you're interested in learning more or making a donation, go to winnersunlimited.com/radio. That's winnersunlimited.com/radio. Doing your best, having fun, and becoming a winner. The Sportsmanship Foundation at winnersunlimited.com/radio.
Let's be honest. The National Symphony may not be in his future, but he wanted to try violin. So you said yes because you love him. And if you love him that much, love him enough to make sure he's buckled up and in the back seat. Find out more about keeping your kids safe in your vehicle at nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat. Show him you love him. Keep him safe. Visit nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
America, your children have an amazing superpower. They can help save lives by not having play dates. That's right. By replacing get-togethers with virtual play dates and video chats, they can help slow the evil spread of germs. And if your superheroes do go outside, make sure they continue their superhero wing by staying 6 feet away from others to protect everyone in America land. Find out more at coronavirus.gov. A message from the CDC and the Ad Council.
Hey, Dad, how do airplanes fly? What's in this box? Can I touch this? Where does sand come from? Is this tree good for climbing? What happens if I mix these two things together? How are babies made? What does this thing do?
Kids are curious about everything, including guns. Talking to them about gun safety in your home is a good first step, but you can do more. Always keep your guns locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Storing your guns securely is the best way to prevent family fire, including unintentional shootings. For more information on safe gun storage and ways to keep your family safe, visit endfamilyfire.org. That's endfamilyfire.org.
What do we keep in the attic? What's this thing called? Can I ride my bike backwards?
Like I said, kids are curious. It's up to us to keep them safe. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.
1 in 3 adults has prediabetes. 1 in 3. That means it could be you, your football buddy, your football buddy, or you, your best man, your worst man, you, your dog walker, your cat jogger. While 1 in 3 adults has prediabetes, with early diagnosis, prediabetes can be reversed. Take the risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org. That's doihaveprediabetes.org.
Wait, did they just say 1 in 3 adults has prediabetes? That's 33.33333% of adults. That means it could be me, my boss, or my boss's boss, or me, my favorite sister, or my other sister. That's 7 members of my 21-person romantic book club. Wait, the 1 in 3 could be me, my karaoke partner Carol, or my karaoke enemy Jeff. I'm gonna take the risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org.
Brought to you by the Ad Council and its Prediabetes Awareness Partners.
This is the Sports Psychology Hour.
Good morning, everyone. I'm sports psychologist Dr. Andrew Jacobs. This is the Sports Psychology Hour from our flagship station, 810 WHB in Kansas City. I'm here every week as we talk about the mental side of sports. Our shows are rebroadcast throughout the country in a number of cities and podcasted all over the place. You can find him on Apple iTunes, SoundCloud, all over the place. And I'm privileged this morning to have a guest now with us. His name is Dr. John Yeager. He is one of the greatest lacrosse players in this country. He's in all kinds of halls of fame back on the East Coast. And John, thank you for joining us this morning. I'm really looking forward to talking to you.
Thanks, Andy. I really appreciate being here.
Last night, I don't know if you saw the Gonzaga-UCLA game, but the Gonzaga player, Jalen Suggs, just dribbled the ball up at the end of these overtime and sank a three-pointer that won the game for him. What do you think it takes for somebody to do that?
Well, I think it takes a lot of practice, trial and error over and over and over again, to get to the point where there's almost ice in the veins. So it allows for him to do things through repetition, that he's been in those situations before, and this is just another one of them. So it's in many ways, he's not looking at, well, is my shot going to be the one that wins it or not? It's just that what he's trained himself to do. He's not thinking, if I make this, we win. If we miss it, we lose. I've got the ball. Let's shoot it and see what happens, right? Exactly. Now, how do you develop that? And you played in the goal, okay? And I haven't worked with many lacrosse players because in Kansas City we don't have that much. Lacrosse is growing rapidly here, but I've worked with goalkeepers in hockey, in soccer. I've worked with closers in baseball, field goal kickers in football, and really the mindset is sort of the same, isn't it? Yeah, it's very similar. There's almost in some ways two games going on. It's the game that the goalie or that specific position is involved in, and they're part of a team that's playing against another team. The second piece is more of the inner game. Is the for the goalie in any of these sports, it's the opportunity to be against the shooter at that time. Okay. Or it's the opportunity for the field goal kicker to be that with, putting it through the uprights. So they're looking at kind of two different types of games. And I think those people in those specified positions who have the capacity to really focus on what they need to do, almost making it mechanical at that time, tend to be more successful. My guest today is Dr. John Yeager. He's an author of a number of books, and the newest one, The Coaching Zone, Next Level Leadership in Sports. So let me ask this question, John. On your website, YeagerLeadership.com, you said you help clients focus, shift, and maximize. Tell us what that means. Well, in many ways, we help people, and if we go from a specific, whether it's business or education or sports, I think looking at three different focuses to shift from. And if we're thinking about athletes or, in many ways, coaches, which the coaching zone is all about, the first shift is that of self-awareness, that coaches and athletes, know what their stories are and how those stories influence their motivation, and noticing their being aware of their strengths, being aware of their shortcomings, and also being aware of their purpose. So that's that first shift, to be really able to do that. And then to seamlessly shift, Andy, into the next area, which is, I use this mostly with coaches, the capacity to lead and empower their athletes, okay, or lead and empower themselves, at that time through cultivating, connections, with athletes, through trust, mattering, empathy, effectively challenging them, giving them good feedback, but also with coaches, letting go of control to a certain degree. So that's that second shift. So in many ways, if the coach doesn't have a really strong awareness, in many ways, they're not going to have a greater awareness of the athletes that they work with. And that becomes a problem because they're not doing everything that they possibly can to be the best coach they can be. And that third shift is to orchestrate or choreograph the team dance. And the team dance is looking at what's the rhythm and flows of the team that I coach. Okay, in that, how do I get accountability? How do I get support? And so sometimes coaches need to focus just on the team. Sometimes they need to focus on the individual athletes. Sometimes they're able to focus on, just need to focus on themselves. And it's that capacity to shift back and forth at the right time for the right reason, I believe, helps make coaches more effective. I've talked for years about
coaches wear many hats. They're leaders, they're guides, they're psychologists, they're disciplinarians, they're teachers. But I have a saying, John, a good coach is a good psychologist, a bad coach needs a sports psychologist. And unfortunately today, you like that, don't you? I like that a lot. Anyway, today we see so many examples of coaches who lose control of their emotions, their focus, their mindset, and it affects these athletes in such a negative way, especially at young ages. And as we talk throughout the show today, I want to talk about that with you because, you know, when you take an athlete like Jalen Suggs, who made that shot yesterday, to put Gonzaga into the championship game, obviously along the way he had to have been guided by some great coaches that taught him confidence, right?
Exactly. So anyway, yeah, from a standpoint of confidence, and really looking at this idea of I use the term hero here. It's based on Fred Lupin's work from the University of Nebraska at Lincoln, and hero stands for hope, efficacy, or confidence, resilience, and optimism. That's psychological capital. So many ways that with Jalen Suggs, he had developed a level of high psychological capital, okay, where he's able to have hope, where he knows what the goal is, okay, he has certain pathways to get to that goal, and he had that pathway down the court, literally and figuratively, you know, to hit the buzzer beater. And then the third piece, he has the agency, in many ways the confidence to be able to do that. And he's established the confidence through a variety of different ways, through having mastery experiences that he's accomplished over time and being able to refer back to those mastery experiences to provide a new experience, something that he has needed to work on. In my sense, is throughout his career, okay, even before college, he was able to do that. And the second thing is that there's a state to get that confidence to that level, is that he has been recognized by Coach Few and his fellow players and other people. And just the way the media was playing him up before the game, it seems like it's just a really kind of neat thing where he's been, you know, recognized and say, you know, yeah, you are good, you know, in there. And then the other piece, that he's psychophysiologically ready for the moment.
Yes,
and
that's a big piece of this. Yep. We need to go to our break here, John. But when we come back, I want to talk about failure. I want to talk about how we learn from failure, how it's a growth experience for people. I'm sports psychologist Dr. Andrew Jacobs. My guest today is Dr. John Yeager. He has a new book out called The Coaching Zone: Next Level Leadership in Sports. I'm sports psychologist Dr. Andrew Jacobs. This is the Sports Psychology Hour.
This is the Sports Psychology Hour.
I'm Dr. Andrew Jacobs. As a sports psychologist with 38 years of experience, I've worked with athletes, coaches, parents, and officials, assisting them at learning how to handle issues like sportsmanship, self-confidence, developing a positive, realistic attitude, and achieving maximum performance. I want more people to know about the importance of having fun, learning from failure, and that winning is about doing your best. That's why I created the Sportsmanship Foundation, a 501c3 educational organization dedicated to promoting and educating parents and athletes about the role of good sportsmanship in our development. Our priority is to help bring back the fun into youth sports.
If you're interested in learning more or making a donation, go to winnersunlimited.com/radio. That's winnersunlimited.com/radio. Doing your best, having fun, and becoming a winner. The Sportsmanship Foundation at winnersunlimited.com/radio.
America, your children have an amazing superpower. That's right. They can help save lives by simply washing their hands. Just 20 seconds of thorough hand washing after they've coughed or sneezed or been outside can help fight against the dastardly spread of germs. Armed with only soap and water and hands, your superhero can protect you, your family, and everyone out there in America land. Amazing! Find out more at coronavirus.gov. A message from the CDC and the Ad Council.
Neil Armstrong waited 6 hours and 39 minutes to step onto the surface of the moon. Jackie Robinson waited 20 months to play his first game with the Brooklyn Dodgers. And even DiCaprio had to wait 22 years to win an Oscar. You can wait until your destination. Don't text and drive.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
But
I know about courage, I learned from my adoptive mom. She said sometimes you just gotta hold on and know we'll get through this. Mom, we are so high up. Hold my hand.
No, you hold my hand.
Here we go.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org to find out more. This message is brought to you by Adopt U.S. Kids, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and the Ad Council.
Let's be honest. The National Symphony may not be in his future, but he wanted to try violin. So you said yes because you love him. And if you love him that much, love him enough to make sure he's buckled up and in the back seat. Find out more about keeping your kids safe in your vehicle at nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat. Show them you love them. Keep them safe. Visit nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Hey, Dad, how do airplanes fly? What's in this box? Can I touch this? Where does sand come from? Is this tree good for climbing? What happens if I mix these two things together? How are babies made? What does this thing do?
Kids are curious about everything, including guns. Talking to them about gun safety in your home is a good first step, but you can do more. Always keep your guns locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Storing your guns securely is the best way to prevent family fire, including unintentional shootings. For more information on safe gun storage and ways to keep your family safe, visit endfamilyfire.org. That's endfamilyfire.org.
What do we keep in the attic? What's this thing called? Can I ride my bike backwards?
Like I said, kids are curious. It's up to us to keep them safe. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.
This is the Sports Psychology Hour.
Good morning, everybody. I'm sports psychologist Dr. Andrew Jacobs. This is the Sports Psychology Hour from our flagship station, Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. I'm here every week discussing the mental side of sports with you, and my guest today is Dr. John Yeager. He has a new book out called The Coaching Zone, Next Level Leadership in Sports. He's one of the greatest lacrosse goalkeepers in this country. He's in a bunch of How many Halls of Fame are you in, by the way?
I'm just mostly in the New England Hall of Fame, the New England Hall of Fame, the Eastern Massachusetts Hall of Fame, and in my college Hall of Fame, Boston State, which is now actually UMass Boston. And it's, I played a while back, so the game has significantly changed over time. But I think the most important thing, and if I may, that it comes down to what I learned during those times has really helped me in my ability to kind of communicate the mental game with the athletes that I coach today.
Well, tell everybody what you do.
Well, basically what I do is I work with individuals and teams from a standpoint of how do they bring out their joy, their purpose, and performance in their sport. And I help them look through, as I mentioned the other time, their ability to shift back and forth from their own self-awareness, and how do they then function on the field or court or rink, and then how do they function within the team. And so then looking at from a mental preparation perspective, how well do they do? How well do they focus on success and kind of a mastery approach to what they do, as opposed to living with a strong fear of failure.
You just hit that word, failure, and the word fear. Okay. My great uncle, Hearst Jacobs, was the winningest trainer in horse racing history when he died 51 years ago, a long time ago. He won 3,596 races, and he was a big influence on my life growing up. And his daughter, my cousin Patrice, owned the horse that won the Triple Crown in 1978, named Affirmed. I got to be around my relatives a lot growing up, and I'm very close with my cousin Patrice now as well. And we've talked so much about success and failure. In fact, my uncle taught me a quote growing up: sports is the greatest theater in the world. Everyone knows their part, but no one knows what will happen. And his son, my cousin Tommy, re-emphasized that to me. And that's sort of become one of my mantras with what I talk to people about. You don't know what's going to happen. But, John, failure is such a, we all fail. We all screw up. We all make mistakes. Mm-hmm. Good coaches, I feel, teach failure. They teach their athletes that it's and let me just go off on this and then get your thought on it. They teach athletes it is okay to fail because you're going to do it. Not that you have to like it, you have to enjoy it, but it's okay because it's going to happen. But how you learn from it, how you grow from it, is going to make you better. Let me get your thoughts on that.
Well, one is if coaches can establish a level of vulnerability trust with their athletes, and what I mean by vulnerability trust is the capacity is that the coach can actually be, athletes can model off the coach where the coach makes mistakes and failures too. And to have that level of trust that's going on between athlete and coach so that the athlete doesn't kind of look over his or her shoulder back at the coach when they miss the hoop. Okay, and so that they feel like, okay, they've made a mistake. It didn't feel good, especially it happened at a critical time in a match or a game. But they also know is that not being judged as a person because of that.
Let me stop you right. Let me stop you right there. They don't look back at the coach. Okay, see, I think an athlete that ends up doing that when they were younger got criticized, yelled at, cut down, demoralized when they made a mistake. And then they develop that insecurity, and then as they get older, when they make mistakes, they're always looking over there to either get that support, reinforcement, or negativity from the coach.
Exactly. It becomes a belief system that becomes entrenched, almost like a gut in the mind response, is that it's just an automatic response that their system goes through, and they go straight to that emotion, and that they've said that they've failed. And that's why it's so important, especially with our youth coaches today, to be able to see that and to actually see what a deer in the headlights look is in a young athlete when something happens like that, so that they can help to build that athlete up to understand that failure is, and I know we talk about it's cliche, but it's part of the game, and that's one of the few ways that we can, it's the only way we can grow, is if we failed before and we go through that trial and error.
Well, give you an example. I've worked with many NFL kickers, place kickers, and punters. And one of the things we talk about, I've worked with a young man this year who's a very successful place kicker, and we talked about not that you don't want to miss a kick, extra point, field goal, blow a kickoff, but when you do, how are you going to react to it and respond and come back from it versus let it get in your head? And I know there was a game where he missed a kick, missed an extra point, and then came back his next kick and kicked a field goal well over 50 yards. And because he said, Doc, my whole focus is like he was telling me TNK, the next kick. I missed it. I looked at what I did wrong, blew it out of my mind, and moved on. And the coaches, they're fine because they know that's where my mindset's at.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I remember this was when we were playing a state championship game in Indiana years and years ago, and one of my athletes got penalized for an illegal stick, which is a 3-minute unreleasable penalty, which means that we have to be man down for 3 minutes, and that's usually the other team has a great chance to score a lot of goals there. So he came off the field, looked at me with deer in the headlights, and I had to make two decisions. One decision at that time, and my options were to look at him saying, gruffly, what were you thinking? Or as opposed to saying, okay. And then basically what I did is I took the high road, and when he came off the field and went to the penalty box, I said to him, John, you did make a mistake. And just like you said, Andy, about with the place kicker, is that you got 30 seconds to grieve about what just happened, okay? Then what I want you to do for the remaining 2.5 minutes in the box, I want you to watch the game and see how you can make a difference when you get back out there. And so basically, and then I said to him, we need you out there. We need you to help make this happen for us out there. So it was in many ways helping him to reframe and saying that, look, I can't ruminate over this much longer, okay? It doesn't feel good, but I need to somehow accept and tolerate that. And then if the coach is modeling that with their athletes, that speaks volumes to the capacity that the athlete has to work through that failure and get back out there and do their job. And if they do that enough times, similar to the place kicker that you're talking about, or a golfer who hits sprays the tee shot into the woods, saying, that's just that one shot. Okay, now what I need to do is to think about what goes on there next.
Well, and that's where, in our last segment, I want to get into the importance of visualization and confidence, because those two words, I think, reflect so much about the ability to be successful. Because I think, I always tell an athlete when they make a mistake, assuming that they're not on the field continuing to play, but they have a second, visualize, look at what they did wrong, then visualize doing it correctly and move on to the next play, and take that positive image in their mind into the next play. What do you think about that?
Yeah, exactly. If they have those images in there, because our minds, there's a thing that John Kabat-Zinn, who's the guru of mindfulness, talks about called the monkey mind, or the drunken monkey. We've all got that somehow sitting in our head that can kind of go off, and just thoughts bounce off our head saying, I screwed up, I stink, and all that stuff. But if that's that bad movie or that horror movie, and if we can create enough movies in our head of success, even small successes, that prepares us well for when the present moment comes up and you act appropriately with there, because you're making that kind of psychophysiological connection about what you have stored in your brain and getting that through all the neurology throughout the rest of the body so that you're going to perform in that situation.
My guest today is Dr. John Yeager. He has co-authored several books, and the latest is The Coaching Zone, Next Level Leadership in Sports. And when we come back from our last break here, John, I want to talk about fear, okay? Because I think overcoming fear, not learning to accept being scared, being afraid as part of what you're doing is so important. And I've found that the top level athletes are not afraid. They don't have that fear in their mindset. They deal with negativity, they deal with failure, but they're not afraid. I'm sports psychologist Dr. Andrew Jacobs. This is the Sports Psychology Hour.
This is the Sports Psychology Hour.
I'm Dr. Andrew Jacobs. As a sports psychologist with 38 years of experience, I've worked with athletes, coaches, parents, and officials, assisting them at learning how to handle issues like sportsmanship, self-confidence, developing a positive, realistic attitude, and achieving maximum performance. I want more people to know about the importance of having fun, learning from failure, and that winning is about doing your best. That's why I created the Sportsmanship Foundation, a 501c3 educational organization dedicated to promoting and educating parents and athletes about the role of good sportsmanship in our development. Our priority is to help bring back the fun into youth sports.
If you're interested in learning more or making a donation, go to winnersunlimited.com/radio. That's winnersunlimited.com/radio. Doing your best, having fun, and becoming a winner. The Sportsmanship Foundation at winnersunlimited.com/radio.
Right now, our country feels divided, but there's a place where people are coming together.
I gotta tell you, I was nervous to talk to someone so different than me.
Me too, but I'm glad we are.
Love Has No Labels and One Small Step are helping people with different political views, beliefs, and life experiences come together through conversation, and it feels good.
Wow, your story is so...
Interesting?
Yeah.
When people actually sit down, talk, and listen to one another, they can break down boundaries and connect as human beings. At lovehasnolabels.com/onesmallstep, you can listen to amazing, life-changing conversations and find simple tools to start a conversation of your own.
I know one thing. This conversation gives me hope.
It gives me a lot of hope, too.
Take a step toward bringing our country and your community together by having the courage to start a conversation at lovehasnolabels.com/onesmallstep. A message from StoryCorps, Love Has No Labels, and the Ad Council.
If a natural disaster comes knocking, how prepared is your family? You can't just close the door on earthquakes, floods, or hurricanes and hope they go away. That's why it's important to make a plan now. Ready.gov/plan has the tools and tips you need to prepare your family for an emergency. So if disaster shows up at your doorstep, you'll be ready. Visit ready.gov/plan and make a plan today. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
What I know about courage, I learned from my adoptive mom. She said sometimes you just gotta hold on and know we'll get through this. Mom, we are so high up. Hold my hand.
No, you hold my hand.
Here we go.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org to find out more. This message is brought to you by Adopt U.S. Kids, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and the Ad Council.
This is the Sports Psychology Hour.
Hello again, everyone. I'm sports psychologist Dr. Andrew Jacobs. This is the Sports Psychology Hour. My guest today is Dr. John Yeager. He is the author of The Coaching Zone, Next Level Leadership in Sports. He's one of the top goaltenders in lacrosse history in this country. And having a fascinating interview with John. You know, John, I mentioned the word fear, okay? Everyone's got fears. We're all afraid of things. But I think, and this goes back to coaching kids, one of my passions is sportsmanship and youth sports. I co-authored a book called Just Let Them Play, guiding parents, coaches, and athletes through youth sports with Kansas City Royals Hall of Famer Jeff Montgomery and USA Swimming Hall of Famer Coach Pete Malone. And fear, we're all afraid of something. It comes to sports, fear of screwing up, fear of letting people down. I think one of the biggest problems a lot of kids have is fear of letting their coaches down, their parents down, getting yelled at, getting criticized. I just had a young athlete in my office the other day who, when she talked about, I had her parents in there. It's the first time I met her parents previously. And, you know, what are you afraid of? And she goes, I'm afraid my dad's going to get angry at me. Why if I screw up? I mean, what would you say to that?
Well, that's concerning, Andy, in that there needs to be kind of a strategy to work with her and all athletes, you know, who fear that they're going to that they're not competent, that they're going to let somebody down. It reminds me of a set of belief systems. And usually what happens with fear and shame and guilt tend to come out first. Emotions tend to show up first, and many times athletes and young athletes don't understand what is the thought process behind there. And so in many ways, with this young athlete that you're talking about, she basically was fear of violating the rights of her parents in many ways, or she felt guilty that she was violating the rights there and felt fear because of that. And the thing is that to try to help, people, coaches and sports psychologists can help young people kind of work through that by changing what that belief system is, so they get past that emotion, because the emotion just tends to take over. It's so visceral, the negative emotion, that to begin to talk about the belief system and coaches, okay, and parents can establish that vulnerability, trust, as I mentioned before, with their sons, daughters, and in their athletic venues, and to help them to learn to understand that whatever they do out there, they still love them. So when I was 11 years old, I rented my first road race, okay, in Framingham, Massachusetts, and it was July 4th. I got there, and there were all adults there. I was the only kid there, and the fear just went flying through me. I looked over at my father, and he just gave me a smile, and that smile said everything, Andy. And it said to me is that, John, you don't have to do this. You can do this. You don't have to. So I stayed in there, stayed with the fear. Gun went off, 3-mile race. Came in dead last. The parade afterwards almost caught up to me. It was July 4th. But the bottom line is that has stuck with me before, because no matter what, it was unconditional caring and unconditional love. And if coaches can do that, and if parents can do that in that way, and that means that there needs to be that level of parent and coach education to get them to understand how they communicate, whether it's verbal or nonverbal, with their son or daughter, with the athlete, is critically important.
Okay, so that brings up the word fun, and yes. What I find with one of my concerns about youth sports today is we have all these incredibly intense, high-level competitions for younger kids, and we're having last week I talked with a guest about traveling teams at young ages, how he believes that we've got way too many kids traveling at 9 and 10 years of age in these elite level sports teams. And I'm seeing, and I've been in practice 40 years, John, I'm seeing now a lot of young athletes coming to my office who are 11, 12 years old who are burned out. And they don't want to play anymore. And 13 and 14, like I had a college soccer player I talked to on Friday. And she is a freshman. She's starting on her team. She's doing well. But she's had to battle some injuries because they had a fall season and now they have a spring season. She's played soccer nonstop since August. She's got these injuries and mentally she's sort of burned out. And she said, I've always loved soccer. I still love it, but I'm just tired. And, it's not fun anymore. So how do we keep the fun in sports and get kids to love it? Because I think that the intense competitions at younger ages are taking some of the fun out of that.
Well, I think for parents and for coaches, who kind of drive the bus with that, they need to realize that what is the motivation for them to be out there as a parent and as a coach, and to understand what do they want for their sons, daughters, for their athletes out there. And the idea, if they say it's fun, if they say, and many will say, yeah, they want their child to have fun and they want them to have everything else too. I think what's really important is that they need to kind of sit back and see how they can actually, orchestrate the dance or the environment so the athletes, the child's having more fun out there. Drew Hyland, who was at Trinity College for many years and is kind of a sports philosopher, he said the sports experience many times, and just as you said, Andy, too, is that you're not always sure once you step over the line how it's going to go out there. But the thing is that sports can make us feel complete and whole, and I believe part of that is the notion of fun.
Has fun gone out the window to a large degree in youth sports because we're focusing so much on development and getting better and better instead of just enjoying the experience?
Well, it certainly worked a little bit in that direction. My hope is with COVID and the inability over the past year for actually kids to go out there and have fun, instead just having Zoom strategy meetings with their coaches, for coaches and parents to begin to realize what fun was missed by not being out in the field in that, arena with other athletes then. So I might hope there might be a little shift in that. Now, will it get back to the point where it gets so developmental? That's possible too. But I believe in many ways there's a strong groundswell of coaches out there who are trying to make that shift and making it part of the core values of the team, that the parents have to pay attention to the core values of the team.
Well, and that to me is also where you mentioned with COVID and coming back from that as we are now, thank God. And I think one of the things that's important, and I've emphasized this forever on this show, now with the psychological impact of everything, if you're a coach, I think have a meeting once in a while. Instead of have a practice where instead of you spend the whole time practicing hitting or shooting or dribbling or whatever, have a practice to sit down and talk about feelings. How's everybody doing? Where are you at mentally? How are you handling things? How are you dealing with the stressors that have gone on? What are the expectations you got? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's perfect, and that allows for the coach to read the team. It offers a wonderful gift to allow for the student, the athletes to be able to communicate with each other. Now depending on their ages, there may be, coaches may have to provide more directed questions to be able to get responses out from their athletes. And I'm in favor of a lot of having like the teams meet, but also within this, Andy, is having them meet in small groups and talk about, different things and put stuff down, write stuff down on, what's been your higher moment? Why do you do this? What do you enjoy most about being on this team? When do you have a higher moment, on this team, or what factors give life to you being involved on this team in this sport, and kind of write them down on easel paper, and then they present their small group work to everybody else. And so if you have a group of 20 athletes in the room, you've got, maybe 5 groups of 4, and they've all posted this stuff, and you find all these similarities that the kids end up coming up with. And I think one of that big pieces there is the autonomy supportive piece, that kids, coaches actually let go of control to a certain degree to allow the athletes to express and experience themselves on the athletic field.
John, we've got just less than a minute to go. How can people reach you if they'd like to get a hold of you? I really appreciate you being on the show today. This has been great.
Yes, my email's john@jaegerleadership.com, one word there, too. My new book, The Coaching Zone, is actually on Amazon now, Kindle and paperback. And this coming Thursday, April 8th, is the actual official launch. And that day, the Kindle book will be for $199. And you can also get to me through my website at www.thecoachingzonebook.com.
John, thank you so much. Listen, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been fabulous. I'd love to have you on again. I'm sports psychologist Dr. Andrew Jacobs. This is the Sports Psychology Hour.
This is the Sports Psychology Hour.
I'm Dr. Andrew Jacobs. As a sports psychologist with 38 years of experience, I've worked with athletes, coaches, parents, and officials, assisting them at learning how to handle issues like sportsmanship, self-confidence, developing a positive, realistic attitude, and achieving maximum performance. I want more people to know about the importance of having fun, learning from failure, and that winning is about doing your best. That's why I created the Sportsmanship Foundation, a 501c3 educational organization dedicated to promoting and educating parents and athletes about the role of good sportsmanship in our development. Our priority is to help bring back the fun into youth sports.
If you're interested in learning more or making a donation, go to winnersunlimited.com/radio. That's winnersunlimited.com/radio. Doing your best, having fun, and becoming a winner. The Sportsmanship Foundation at winnersunlimited.com/radio.
If a natural disaster comes knocking, how prepared is your family? You can't just close the door on earthquakes, floods, or hurricanes and hope they go away. That's why it's important to make a plan now. Ready.gov/plan has the tools and tips you need to prepare your family for an emergency. So if disaster shows up at your doorstep, you'll be ready. Visit ready.gov/plan and make a plan today. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
America, your children have an amazing superpower. They can help save lives by not having play dates. That's right. By replacing get-togethers with virtual play dates and video chats, they can help slow the evil spread of germs. And if your superheroes do go outside, make sure they continue their superhero wing by staying 6 feet away from others to protect everyone in America land. Find out more at coronavirus.gov. A message from the CDC and the Ad Council.
1 in 3 adults has prediabetes. 1 in 3. That means it could be you, your football buddy, your football buddy, or you, your best man, your worst man, you, your dog walker, your cat jogger. While 1 in 3 adults has prediabetes, with early diagnosis, prediabetes can be reversed. Take the risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org. That's doihaveprediabetes.org.
Wait, did they just say 1 in 3 adults has prediabetes? That's 33.33333% of adults. That means it could be me, my boss, or my boss's boss, or me, my favorite sister, or my other sister. That's 7 members of my 21-person romantic book club. Wait, the 1 in 3 could be me, my karaoke partner Carol, or my karaoke enemy Jeff. I'm gonna take the risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org.
Brought to you by the Ad Council and its Prediabetes Awareness Partners.